Emma had always known that her heart belonged to Lucas Carter. Ever since she could remember, he had been a constant presence in her life, a boy who had turned into a young man right before her eyes, yet never once saw her the way she saw him. Lucas had been her brother Jake's best friend since they were 10. They had done everything together, playing video games, riding their bikes, getting into trouble at school. And Emma? She had always been the little tag-along, the annoying younger sister who wanted to be part of their adventures. She still remembered the first time she realized she liked him, really liked him. She was 13, awkward and shy, while Lucas was 16, cool, confident, and effortlessly charming. It had been a summer evening, the golden light casting a soft glow over their backyard. She had been watching from the porch as Lucas and Jake wrestled on the grass, their laughter ringing through the air. When Lucas turned to look at her, flashing a lazy grin, something had shifted inside her. But it was also the first time she understood that, to him, she would always be just Jake's little sister. "Emma, what are you staring at?" Jake had teased, throwing a ball her way. She had quickly looked away, her cheeks burning. "Nothing." Lucas had chuckled, ruffling her hair, like she was some kid. "You're cute when you blush, Em." At 13, her heart had nearly burst. At 16, she had started dreaming about him. By 18, she had realized it was hopeless. Lucas had never looked at her that way. Over the years, Emma had done everything to move on. She dated other guys, focused on her studies, even left town for college, hoping that distance would help her forget. But no matter how much time passed, a part of her had never let go. And now, years later, she was coming back home. No longer the shy, love-struck girl, but a woman who had learned to stand on her own. She wasn't sure if she would ever stop loving Lucas Carter. But one thing was certain, she was done chasing after a love that would never be hers. Or so she thought. Emma stepped off the train, adjusting the strap of her bag over her shoulder. The familiar scent of home, the mix of pine trees and freshly baked bread from the town bakery, hit her instantly. She had been gone for years, but nothing had really changed. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. "Jake, where are you?" Emma just got in, heading home. She knew her brother had probably sent Lucas to pick her up. That's how it always was. Lucas was practically family, always there for every important moment in their lives. She braced herself, mentally preparing to see him again after all these years. When she reached the parking lot, her breath caught in her throat. There he was, leaning casually against his sleek black car, arms crossed, his aviator sunglasses shielding his eyes. He was older now, more mature, his once boyish features sharpened into something devastatingly handsome. Lucas Carter had always been attractive, but now, he looked like he had stepped right out of a dream. He spotted her and grinned. Well, look who finally decided to come back. Emma forced herself to smile. "Missed me?" Lucas chuckled. "You wish, shortcake." That nickname. He had called her that since she was 10, when she tripped while baking and got flour all over her face. Back then, it had made her heart race. Now? It still did, but she refused to let it show. "You're still using that stupid nickname?" she scoffed, tossing her bag into the car. "Of course." He opened the passenger door for her. "Get in, shortcake." Emma rolled her eyes, but slid inside. As he got into the driver's seat, she took a deep breath. She had spent years preparing for this moment, telling herself that she had moved on. But the moment Lucas glanced at her with that familiar, teasing smile, she realized something terrible. She was still in love with him, and he still saw her as nothing more than Jake's little sister. The drive home was filled with easy conversation, the kind that made it feel like Emma had never left. Lucas had a way of making things seem effortless, his deep, smooth voice, the way he laughed at his own jokes, the casual charm that had always drawn people in. But Emma wasn't a little girl anymore, and she refused to let herself be swept away by old feelings. "So, how's life treating you, shortcake?" Lucas asked, glancing at her briefly before focusing back on the road. She ignored the flutter in her chest at the sound of his voice. "Pretty good. Finished my degree, got a job offer in the city. Just here for a little break before I start working." Lucas raised an eyebrow. Impressive. Guess you're not just Jake's annoying little sister anymore. Emma scoffed. Was I ever? Oh, definitely, he teased. But you grew out of it. Kinda. She swatted his arm. Jerk. Lucas just laughed, and for a moment, it was easy to forget everything. The past, her lingering feelings, and the way her heart had been foolishly attached to him for so long. But then, he looked at her again. Not a passing glance. A real, lingering look. Emma felt it, his eyes trailing over her face, like he was seeing her in a way he never had before. Her stomach flipped, but before she could dwell on it, he smirked. Still as feisty as ever. Some things never change. Emma forced herself to roll her eyes, ignoring the way her pulse quickened. Neither do you. The rest of the drive was spent reminiscing about old times, catching up on what had changed in their lives. Emma learned that Lucas had started his own business, a tech company that was growing fast. He had moved into a loft downtown, traveled to a few countries for work, but somehow, he had never really left their hometown. Jake always said you'd never stay away too long, she mused. Lucas shrugged. Guess I never saw a reason to leave for good. Emma didn't respond, but she couldn't help wondering. Was it really because he loved this place? Or was it because he had something or someone keeping him here? When they finally reached home, Emma barely had time to step out of the car before Jake came barreling out of the house. About damn time. Jake pulled her into a tight hug, lifting her off the ground. You took forever, brat. Nice to see you too, she grumbled, laughing as he finally set her down. Jake studied her with a proud yet slightly protective look. You look different. Well, for years we'll do that to a person. Lucas leaned against the car with a smirk. Told you she grew up. Emma caught the strange tone in his voice, but chose to ignore it. She turned back to her brother, shaking her head. You act like I've been gone for decades. Jake snorted. You might as well have. Now come inside. Mom's been cooking like crazy. The warmth of home hit her the moment she stepped inside. The familiar scent of cinnamon and freshly baked bread, the laughter of her family echoing through the halls. It was comforting, nostalgic, and yet there was something different this time. Or maybe it was just her who had changed. As the evening went on, Emma found herself slipping back into the old routine, catching up with her parents, teasing Jake about his horrible taste in movies, and listening to family gossip. Lucas, as always, blended in seamlessly, like he was just another member of the family. But every now and then, she caught him looking at her. At first, she thought she was imagining it. Maybe she was just too aware of him. But as the night progressed, she realized it wasn't just in her head. Lucas was watching her. Not in the usual friendly way. It was subtle, but there was something different in his gaze, something thoughtful, something almost curious. And for the first time in years, Emma dared to hope. Maybe, just maybe, Lucas Carter was starting to see her the way she had always seen him. The days following Emma's return felt like a blur of nostalgia and unexpected emotions. She had come back expecting to enjoy a peaceful break before starting her new job, but she hadn't anticipated the strange tension growing between her and Lucas. It was subtle, but it was there. The way he looked at her a second longer than necessary. The way his casual teasing carried a different edge. The way his smirks faded into something softer when their eyes met. And Emma wasn't sure what to do with it. She had spent years burying her feelings for him, convincing herself that she was over him. But now Lucas Carter was throwing her entire world off balance. It was past midnight when Emma found herself wandering into the kitchen, unable to sleep. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. She poured herself a glass of water, leaning against the counter, lost in thought. Then, she heard footsteps. Turning, she found Lucas standing in the doorway, his gray t-shirt clinging to his toned frame, his hair slightly messy like he had just gotten out of bed. Emma's grip on her glass tightened. You couldn't sleep either? He asked, stepping inside. She shook her head. Too much on my mind. Lucas grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, leaning against the counter beside her. What's keeping you up? Emma hesitated. She could lie, brush it off like it was nothing. But instead, she surprised herself by being honest. Coming back here, it's making me rethink a lot of things. Lucas studied her, his expression unreadable. Like what? She turned the question back on him. What about you? You've been here all these years. Do you ever feel like you should have left? Lucas exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I used to think so. Thought about leaving, starting over somewhere else. But something always kept me here. Emma swallowed. Something or someone? For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Something intense. Something she couldn't quite name. But just as quickly, he smirked. Maybe both. Emma rolled her eyes, trying to hide the disappointment curling in her stomach. Of course. Always keeping your options open, huh? She teased. Lucas chuckled, but there was something different in his gaze when he looked at her. Not always, he murmured. The air between them shifted, thick with something unspoken, something that made Emma's breath catch. She opened her mouth to say something, anything to break the moment, but Lucas beat her to it. It's late. You should get some sleep, shortcake. Just like that, the moment was gone. Emma forced a small smile. Yeah. Good night, Lucas. As she walked back to her room, her heart pounded in her chest. Something was definitely changing. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Emma did her best to ignore it. The way Lucas's eyes lingered on her. The way his teasing had shifted, still playful, but softer, almost intentional. The way her heartbeat raced whenever he was near. It was dangerous territory, and she knew it. She had spent years being the little sister of his best friend, the girl he had always treated like family. Letting herself believe anything had changed was a mistake. And yet, as the days passed, she found herself drawn to him in a way she never had before. The annual summer party was one of the highlights of their small town. A lakeside gathering filled with music, laughter, and childhood memories. Emma had almost forgotten how much she loved it, how much she had missed the warmth of home, the comfort of familiar faces. And then there was Lucas. She spotted him across the crowd, dressed in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, his dark hair tousled like he hadn't even tried. He was laughing at something Jake had said, his entire presence effortlessly magnetic. It wasn't fair. Emma forced herself to look away, joining a group of old friends near the bonfire. She was in the middle of a conversation when someone tapped her shoulder. Dance with me? She turned, only to find Lucas standing there, hand outstretched, a lazy smirk on his lips. Emma hesitated. What happened to all those girls who used to throw themselves at you? I'm sure one of them would love to dance. Lucas didn't waver. I asked you. Something in his voice made her stomach flip. Before she could talk herself out of it, she placed her hand in his, letting him lead her to the makeshift dance floor by the lake. The music was slow, the kind that wrapped around them like a quiet promise. Lucas pulled her close, his hands resting gently on her waist. Emma tried to keep her breathing steady as his warmth surrounded her. You've changed, he murmured. Emma looked up. Is that a good thing? Lucas's gaze dropped to her lips for the briefest moment before returning to her eyes. Yeah, it is. Emma's heart pounded so loudly, she was sure he could hear it. It would be so easy to close the distance between them. So easy to give in to the moment. But before anything could happen, Jake's voice rang out from across the bonfire. Emma. She jumped back, as if she had been caught doing something forbidden. Lucas's jaw tightened, but he stepped away just as Jake approached. Hey, man, I've been looking for you, Jake said, clapping Lucas on the shoulder. He turned to Emma with a teasing grin. You okay, little sis? You looked like you were about to pass out. Emma forced a laugh. It's just hot out here. Jake, oblivious as ever, nodded. Come on, we're about to start the fireworks. Emma took the opportunity to walk away, her mind a mess of emotions. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just the little sister anymore. And she wasn't sure what that meant for her and Lucas. The fireworks lit up the sky in dazzling bursts of gold and crimson, but Emma could barely focus on them. Her heart was still racing from the almost moment she had shared with Lucas. She sat on the grass beside Jake and a few other friends, pretending to be engrossed in the display, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Every time she stole a glance at Lucas, she found him watching her, his expression unreadable. It was messing with her head. She had spent years believing that he would never see her as anything other than Jake's little sister. But now, there was something in his eyes, something intense, something undeniable. And she didn't know what to do with it. After the fireworks ended, people began to disperse, some heading home, others lingering by the lake. Emma felt restless, her emotions tangled in a way she couldn't unravel. She needed air. Stepping away from the crowd, she walked along the shoreline, letting the cool night breeze calm her racing thoughts. Couldn't sit still, huh? Emma turned at the familiar voice. Lucas stood a few feet behind her, his hands shoved in his pockets, his expression unreadable. She forced a small smile. Guess I needed a breather. He walked up beside her, his shoulder barely brushing against hers. Mind if I join you? Emma hesitated for a second before nodding. Sure. They walked in silence, the sound of the waves lapping against the shore filling the quiet. It was peaceful, but there was something charged in the air between them, something neither of them had acknowledged yet. Finally, Lucas broke the silence. Jake would kill me if he knew what I was thinking right now. Emma's breath hitched. She turned to look at him, her heart pounding. And what exactly are you thinking? Lucas let out a quiet chuckle, running a hand through his hair. That maybe I've been blind for too damn long. Emma's pulse skyrocketed. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. Lucas. She started, but he cut her off. I know, he said, his voice softer now. You're Jake's little sister. I wasn't supposed to see you like this. But I do. Emma's throat went dry. He had always been the one thing she wanted but couldn't have. And now he was standing right in front of her, looking at her like she was the only thing in the world. I don't know when it changed, Lucas admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I can't ignore it anymore. Emma felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, one step away from something she had wanted for so long. But before she could respond, a voice shattered the moment. What the hell is going on here? Emma spun around to see Jake standing a few feet away, his expression dark with anger. Her stomach dropped. Lucas let out a sharp breath, straightening. Jake. Don't. Jake cut him off, his gaze flashing between the two of them. Tell me this isn't what I think it is. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. This was bad. Very, very bad. And she had no idea how to fix it. The air felt thick with tension, suffocating and inescapable. Emma had seen Jake angry before, but never like this. His fists were clenched at his sides, his jaw locked in a way that sent a clear warning. He was barely holding himself back. Lucas stood his ground, his expression calm but serious. Jake, listen. Listen. Jake let out a humorless laugh, his eyes burning with betrayal. Are you kidding me right now? My best friend and my little sister? Emma flinched at his tone. Jake, it's not like that. Not like that. He turned to her, his face dark with frustration. Then what is it, Emma? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a hell of a lot like you two were about to do something you'll regret. Lucas exhaled, stepping forward slightly. No one is regretting anything. Jake's gaze snapped to him, his anger boiling over. And you? You had years to tell me if something was going on, but you never did. Now I find you sneaking around with my sister? Lucas's expression hardened. Nothing was happening behind your back. We were just... Don't. Jake cut him off. Don't try to justify this, Lucas. You know the rules. My sister is off limits. Emma stiffened at his words. Rules? Are you serious? Jake turned back to her, his expression unreadable. Emma, I've protected you my whole life. You don't know what Lucas is like. He's not the guy you think he is. Lucas scoffed, crossing his arms. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means I've seen you go through girl after girl, Jake snapped. I've watched you break hearts without a second thought. And I won't let Emma be one of them. Emma felt something inside her crack. You think I'm that naive? She asked, her voice shaking slightly. That I can't make my own choices? Jake let out a frustrated sigh. That's not what I'm saying, Emma. Then what are you saying? Silence. Jake's gaze flickered between her and Lucas, his shoulders rising and falling with unspoken words. Emma clenched her fists. You don't get to control my life, Jake. I'm not a kid anymore. And Lucas isn't the right guy for you, Jake said, his tone final. End it now before it's too late. Emma felt like she had been punched in the gut. She looked at Lucas, who was staring at Jake with barely concealed frustration. Then she turned back to her brother, the person who had been her protector for so long, the person who was now standing between her and something that might actually be real. You don't get to decide that, she whispered. Jake's jaw tightened. Emma, I'm done talking about this. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time, she wasn't going to let anyone else decide for her. Emma stormed away, her emotions swirling in a chaotic mess. She had always known Jake was protective, but this felt like betrayal. Like he didn't trust her to make her own choices. Like he still saw her as a child. The summer night air felt thick, pressing against her skin as she reached the edge of the lake. She needed a moment to breathe, to think, to process everything that had just happened. Lucas liked her. She had waited years for this moment, but now that it had come, everything was falling apart. She hugged herself, staring out at the dark water, the reflection of the moon rippling across the surface. She didn't know how long she stood there before she heard footsteps approaching. Lucas. Her body tensed, but she didn't turn around. Emma, he said, his voice softer now, less tense than before. She closed her eyes. Don't, Lucas. I can't deal with this right now. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. I had to make sure you were okay. Emma let out a bitter laugh. Am I okay? My brother just tried to forbid me from being with the one person I've wanted for years. How do you think I feel? Lucas sighed. Jake's just trying to protect you. Emma turned then, frustration burning in her chest. Yeah? And what about you, Lucas? Are you going to walk away because he told you to? Lucas stared at her, something unreadable in his expression. Emma, this isn't just about me. You know how much Jake means to me. If we do this, I could lose him. Her heart clenched. And what about me? What if you lose me? The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncertain. Lucas reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. I don't want to hurt you, Emma. And I don't want to lose Jake either. But I don't know how to fix this. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. She had imagined this moment so many times. She had dreamed of Lucas finally seeing her, of him choosing her. But she never thought it would come at the cost of everything else. She stepped back. Maybe you should figure it out. And then, before he could say anything else, she walked away, leaving him standing there in the moonlight, torn between his best friend and the girl he was finally starting to see. Emma barely slept that night. She tossed and turned, her mind replaying the conversation with Lucas over and over again. Jake's anger, Lucas's hesitation, her own heartbreak. She had spent so many years dreaming of the moment Lucas would finally notice her. But now that he had, it felt nothing like she imagined. By morning, she was exhausted, but she refused to hide in her room. She wasn't going to let this break her. Jake didn't say a word to her at breakfast. She had expected anger, maybe even another argument, but the silence was worse. The way he avoided looking at her, the way his jaw was clenched, the way he barely acknowledged her presence, it hurt more than she wanted to admit. Their relationship had always been strong. Jake had been her protector, her best friend, the one person she could always count on. But now, there was a wall between them, and she wasn't sure if it would ever come down. She didn't see Lucas all day. Part of her wanted to seek him out, to demand an answer, to ask him if he was willing to fight for this. But another part of her was too afraid of what his answer might be. By the time the sun had set, she was restless, pacing back and forth in her room when a soft knock sounded at her window. Her heart nearly stopped. She rushed over, pulling the curtains aside. Lucas. His dark eyes met hers, full of something she couldn't quite place. She hesitated for only a second before unlocking the window and pushing it open. What are you doing here? she whispered. Lucas climbed inside, his movements smooth and practiced. I needed to see you. Emma folded her arms. Did you finally figure things out? Lucas exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to lose Jake. Emma's chest tightened, but before she could turn away, he took a step closer. But I don't want to lose you either. Her breath hitched. Lucas. This is new for me, he admitted, his voice raw with honesty. I don't know how to do this without hurting someone. But I know one thing for sure. I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore. Emma's heart pounded. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Lucas reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Tell me you want this too. Her voice was barely a whisper. I do. He let out a slow breath, relief flickering in his eyes. Then, slowly, carefully, he leaned in. Emma closed her eyes, her pulse racing. And just as their lips were about to meet, the door burst open. What the hell is going on in here?
Jake.
His face was unreadable, his eyes dark with something she couldn't quite place. Emma's stomach dropped. Lucas immediately took a step back, but it was too late. They had been caught. And this time, there was no escaping the consequences. The room felt like a ticking time bomb. Jake stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable, but his clenched fists giving away his barely controlled anger. Lucas had stepped away from Emma, but the tension between them was undeniable. Emma's heart pounded as she forced herself to meet Jake's gaze. Jake, listen. You've got to be kidding me. Jake cut her off, his voice low but laced with fury. I told you this wasn't happening, Emma. She squared her shoulders.
You don't get to decide that.
His eyes flashed. The hell I don't. He turned to Lucas, his tone sharp. You said you wouldn't do this. Lucas exhaled, his face tense but calm. Jake, You swore to me, Lucas. Jake's voice rose, his control slipping. You promised she was off limits. Emma's stomach churned. Jake, I'm not some possession you get to control. I have a say in this too. Jake shook his head, his disappointment clear. You don't get it, Emma. You don't know him like I do. Lucas's jaw tightened. Jake, stop acting like I'm some kind of villain. Jake let out a humorless laugh. Are you serious? I've seen you go through relationships like they mean nothing. And now you expect me to believe my sister is different. She is different, Lucas said firmly. I never wanted to admit it, Jake, but he hesitated, then exhaled. I care about her. More than I should. More than I ever thought I would. Emma's breath caught. Jake's face darkened. And what happens when you get bored, Lucas? What happens when this thing between you fades? Lucas stepped forward, his expression unwavering. It's not going to fade. Silence. Jake stared at him for a long moment before shaking his head. I can't believe this. Emma clenched her fists. Jake, I love you, but you have to stop trying to control my life. Jake's jaw tightened. I'm trying to protect you. Maybe I don't need protecting, she whispered. The air grew thick between them, emotions swirling like a storm. Finally, Jake let out a heavy breath. I can't deal with this right now. He turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Emma felt her heart shatter. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. That could have gone worse. She let out a shaky breath, forcing a smile. Yeah, he could have punched you. Lucas gave her a lopsided smirk. He still might. But behind the humor, Emma could see the weight of what had just happened settle on both of them. This wasn't over. Not even close. The silence in the house was suffocating. For days, Jake avoided Emma. He barely spoke to her, barely looked at her, and when he did, there was nothing but cold distance. It hurt. More than anything, it hurt. She had always been close to her brother. He had always been the one to protect her, the one to make her feel safe. And now, because of love, because of Lucas, it felt like she was losing him. She didn't regret choosing Lucas. She couldn't. But losing Jake? That was a pain she didn't know how to deal with. Lucas tried to talk to Jake, but he was met with nothing but silence. Jake, don't shut her out, Lucas had said.
She loves you, man.
She doesn't want to lose you. Jake's only response was a bitter laugh. That's funny. Because it sure feels like I already lost her. Those words cut deep. Emma knew Jake thought he was losing his best friend and his sister at the same time. And she knew she had to fix it. That evening, she found Jake by the lake, skipping stones across the water. She walked up beside him, crossing her arms. Are you ever going to talk to me again? Jake exhaled, but didn't look at her. What do you want me to say, Emma? She swallowed. I want you to stop shutting me out. He let out a bitter chuckle. That's rich. You're the one who, he stopped, shaking his head. Forget it. Emma grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. No, I won't forget it. You're my brother. You've always been there for me, and I love you, Jake. But I love him too. Jake's jaw tightened. And I'm just supposed to be okay with that? You're supposed to trust me. Silence. Jake finally met her gaze. Emma, do you really think this is going to last? Do you really believe he's not going to hurt you? She didn't hesitate. I do. Jake let out a slow breath, staring at the water. He's my best friend. You're my sister. If this goes wrong, I lose both of you. Emma's heart ached. And if you keep pushing us away, you'll lose us anyway. Jake clenched his jaw, his emotions warring inside him.
Finally, he sighed.
I hate this. Emma smiled softly. I know. Jake rubbed his face. If he hurts you, Emma, he won't. Jake looked at her for a long time, then exhaled heavily.
Fine.
But if he does, I'll kill him. Emma laughed, relief flooding her. It wasn't perfect.
It would take time.
But this was a start. Later that night, Emma found Lucas waiting outside her house. He smiled when he saw her. How bad was it? She smiled back. He didn't punch you, so I'd say it went okay. Lucas let out a breath of relief, then pulled her into his arms. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt like things were finally falling into place. Jake wasn't happy about it, but he would come around. Because at the end of the day, they were family. And family always found a way. As she rested her head against Lucas's chest, she knew this was only the beginning of their love story. And no matter what came next, they would face it together.